All right, everyone, you're going to stand here and look at me. As I've told you before, there's a little bit of a delay, but here I am. It is the Unfound live show for April 24th, 2019. I hope everybody is doing great. I hope we have some people in here. Let's see. There we go. We got 15. Okay, we got it. There's D. There's D and James. And hopefully we'll have a nice crowd tonight. Right now, I'm going to warn you that this show is going to be a little shorter than usual. I'm actually doing the interview for Friday's episode after this show at precisely 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So I'm going to do about an hour. I'll be able to go to about 5 till 10, and that's just going to have to be it. So Jasmine, Tracy, Katrina, Cindy, thank you all for tuning in. But I just want to warn you that beforehand. I know sometimes, we can go maybe to a quarter after 10 Eastern Time or something from that like that. That's not going to happen tonight. I apologize. The episodes always take precedent. And so I'll be interviewing the sister-in-law of Clark Rogers in a little over an hour. So I got a lot to do before I go to bed tonight. So we're going to do this show, and then I'm going to do the interview, which I'm sure is going to go like an hour and a half. So I still have some work to do. But because of that, we're going to flip everything. I want to make sure I get to everybody's questions because we have a lot of good questions that came in for me today that I want to cover. And I have some other things I want to do. But most importantly, I want to make sure that I preview Friday's case. So instead of doing that last, I'm going to do it first, which means I'm going to do it right now. And then we'll get into some of these things. James, no, I've not. I apologize, James, I have not. Just too busy. You have to remember, doing episodes and I'm packing up my place. You can see how there's no piano back there anymore. They came and picked it up yesterday. It's gone. Just too many things going on, James, but it's in my email. It's saved in my email. I promise you I will get to it. So I want to just start off with what the episode is going to be for Friday, and then we'll just go into everything else, and we'll just get as far as we can go before I have to sign off at about 5 till 10 Eastern Time. What's up, LaFord girl? The case that we're going to be covering this Friday is the disappearance of Edwin Clark Rogers, and he usually went by Clark, so that's what we call him in the episode. Once again, I'm interviewing his sister-in-law. Her husband and Clark are brothers, and her name is Rebecca. And this is a disappearance that took place in Texas, near Cleveland, Texas. Clark was from Liberty, Texas. This took place on December 30th, 2011. Clark Rogers is a Vietnam vet. Of course, he had some issues, had some PTSD issues, he had some physical issues. He was 62 years old when he disappeared. And what happened was he was at the local VFW that night, and then he talked to both of his sons on the phone, and he left the place. He was never seen again. Within 24 hours, his Jeep that he was driving was found about a quarter mile from where his estranged wife lived at the time. He was married. He'd been married for years, but they really hadn't been a couple for a long time. They were married, but they hadn't lived together for a long time, although they did communicate once in a while. So, but his Jeep was found a quarter mile away from his wife's home. Of course, he had lived there at one time, but not anymore. In the vehicle, the keys were in the vehicle. His phone was in the vehicle. His medication was in the vehicle. When they found the phone, it had been wiped clean. No text message information or call information were on it. And then after that, this kind of a suspicious thing is his wife took the vehicle and pulled it into her yard and her driveway, and nobody called 911. Nobody let the police know about any of this for 6 days. So that's the case we're covering on Friday. Hello, Blaze. What's going on? LaFord, you're moving to. Justin and Emma, hello from Montana. All right, I was happy to point the sister. Ashley, thank you. Justin, Khalil, what's up? AW, Joyce, what's going on? Everybody's getting here at 9 o'clock. I was just talking about the case that we'll be covering on Friday. The reason I'm doing that first is because I have to get out of here at about 5 till 10 tonight because I'm doing the interview for Friday's episode. I haven't actually interviewed Rebecca yet for the episode. We're talking tonight. Of course, I already know what we're going to talk about. We have the outline already. She has it and everything. We worked everything out yesterday. But the interview hasn't been done, but I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen in it. But those are some of the points that will be mentioned in the interview. And I see Carrie saying, hey, holy cow, not suspicious at all. Yes. But Carrie, Katrina, I'm interviewing Clark Rogers' sister-in-law, Rebecca. Hey, Susan from, I guess that's Vermont. The title of this episode is called The Obvious Facts. And the reason it's called that is because to set it up for this particular disappearance, I talk about how there's a varying levels that you get into when you're doing investigation. There is first collecting the information, just going out there and digging stuff up. Then the next part is trying to determine what are facts, what is the truth, and what are lies and rumors and everything. What are just theories and things that can't be substantiated. The next part is once you determine what all the truth and facts are, which one of those are relevant to the disappearance and which ones aren't. And then the highest level is being able to attach those facts to a particular person, a particular scenario in which the person could have disappeared. And in this case, we have a lot of facts about the Jeep, about the phone, about his medication, about who he called, and everything else. But are those facts pointing in the right direction? That is the key for this. And I've already recorded my part of the episode today. And I talk about that in the summation. What's going on, Jessica and Cherie? What's going on? Good to see you, Cherie. So that is going to be the case for Friday. Clark Rogers, actually, if you were to go to the Charlie Project, it's Edwin Clark Rogers, but he was known as Clark, and that's what we call him during. I will be calling him during the episode, and I'm sure when we do the interview tonight, that's how we will refer to him, as Clark by his middle name instead of Edwin. So yes, very. You could say, I don't like to give too many adjectives or anything, but it's a curious set of circumstances, especially since his Jeep was found down the street from his estranged wife's house, and how she went out there and moved it and pulled it into her driveway and everything. But I'm sure in this interview we're going to be talking about a variety of things that are going to give you a lot to think about. It's going to give you a lot to think about. Once again, just covering the facts, not getting into any theories or anything like that. Okay? So I wanted to cover that first because I didn't want to run out of time at the end of this show tonight, because I'm going to have to sign off a little earlier than I do. Usually, as you know, sometimes we go to 10:15, 20 after 10 Eastern time. I can't do that tonight. So that's the case for this Friday. It's going to be called The Obvious Facts, the disappearance of Clark Rogers from the area of Liberty, Texas, Cleveland, Texas, on December 30th, 2011. Okay, and I'm very happy that I'll be interviewing Rebecca after this show tonight. So now that I did that, we can go back to business as usual for this show, at least for the next 50 minutes. As you can see, as I pointed out before, you'll notice no piano over there. See, it's gone. It's not there anymore. They came and picked it up yesterday. It's gone. I sold it. The sister-in-law is the brother's wife. Rebecca is Clark's brother's wife, is who it's going to be, D. But so if you were to see over in that area of my apartment, it's pretty messy. Been boxing things up, and I think tomorrow I'm going to be able to move at least a few things over there to get it all started. But I can pretty much assure you that this is the last show that you'll be watching where I am here. This will be the last one. And next week, when you see me, I will be in my new apartment up at 1340 Gulf Boulevard, Clearwater, Florida, which is about 13 miles that direction, straight up that direction. So I'm looking forward to it. Of course, moving is a lot of work. My brother, once he gets back from Las Vegas, he's going to get a pickup truck from his neighbor, and we're going to use that to take everything up there. It's probably still will take a couple trips. Carrie, I read that law enforcement picked a great time to stop someone right in front of your place. Yes. The good news is, Carrie, is they left just at the right time. It all was like clockwork. I got very, very lucky. Had that stop gone any longer, it would have been a big, big problem for sure. Thank you for pointing that out, Carrie. Yes, that happened. And the weird thing, it was not a local cop. It was a state cop, a Florida state cop that pulled somebody over in front of my place. I've never seen a state cop in this area before. Very unusual. James, am I buying drinks? Sold your piano. No, I'm not buying drinks, James. I've never been a drink buyer, neither for myself or others, because I don't drink. So I'm sorry. That's funny though. If you are a transcriber, any of you that might have been transcribing over the last month or so, I sent a group email out. If you did, I sent it out last weekend. If you did not get it, please go check your inbox or your spam folder. The reason it's important is it has further information out about how things are going to proceed, and I'm requesting some information from you. So if you did not get that, if you missed it, if you think that it went to your spam folder, whatever the case, please check your email and get back to me with the information that I requested. Because like I said, I sent it on either Saturday or Sunday, something like that. Because I haven't gotten responses back from everybody yet. The poll for the disappearance of Layla Faulkner. This was very interesting. A considerable majority, a sizable majority of you think that Blaine is responsible for Layla's disappearance. And of course, I got to talk to Blaine last Thursday night, and I included that in the summation on Friday. And I guess that after the episode came out, he went on a rant and everything on his Facebook page. I have no idea what he said. I was just told about it. I did not go there to read anything. I really don't care. But the funny thing is that when we did the think tank on Sunday night, now granted that was Easter, we only had a few people in there on Sunday night. We came to the conclusion that Blaine should not be considered the number one suspect in Layla's disappearance. Funny how those things work out. Very, very interesting that the group, in the discussion group, large majority think that he was the number one best choice. But in the think tank, once we worked out some of the facts and talked it over, we started leaning in some different directions. In fact, I think our conclusion was that probably somebody else actually picked her up. So there's that. Always interesting how these things are going to shape up sometimes. Let me go up here for a second. Carrie, I looked. He didn't mention any names, podcasts. So how much of a hot airbag is he? You know, Carrie, except for him being sarcastic once in a while, and then that parting shot that I talked about that he gave me as we were signing off on Messenger, and I've blocked him since, by the way. Tried to have a cordial conversation with him. Just trying to talk to him man to man. I don't know. I mean, do I believe him or not? That's for all of you to decide. All I know is I know that I captured the essence of my conversation with him accurately on Friday when you heard my summation. And I did forget to ask him a couple questions, but overall, I think we covered most of the material, and those were his answers. I'm surprised he didn't mention any names in podcasts. That's interesting. Whatever. I really don't care one way or the other. Carrie says, I think he was an easy choice, but easy isn't always the case. That's true. That's true. So the poll, the large group thought that Blaine is the number one good suspect, but in the think tank, we kind of leaned in a different direction. Look at this. Look what came today. Look at this. How about this? Volume 5 of Season 1. It exists. Right here. These will be getting shipped out probably once I get moved. I'm not going to have any time. Probably not until I move into my new place. But these will be getting shipped out to, of course, all of the guests for these cases. And these will be getting also sent to certain Patreon supporters, patrons. And then also I will be shipping ones to all of the transcribers for these particular interviews. So all of you can look forward to that if you fall into any of those categories. I ordered quite a few of them and they came in today. They look really, really good. Really, 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 really good. I love how each one of these books looks so different. And so there you go. And if you want to buy one, you can either find it on Amazon or you can contact me privately and I will sign one for you and send it to you. So there you go. And I will, as soon as I get into my new place, I'll be able to start on volume 6 of season 1, and that will complete the first season. And so, what's going on, Sharon, that once season 1 is completed with volume 6, you will be able to buy all 6 either in ebook form or print form all at once for a discounted price. Okay, so some of you maybe haven't bought one yet. If you think about buying all 6 at the same time on Amazon, you'll be getting a discount. And so, thank you, Miranda. I appreciate that. So there you go. Very excited about that. Let's move on to some questions because we got some really good questions. I think I got 7 questions to answer tonight. I only have 40 minutes to do it now. Thank you, Pamela. I appreciate it. Thank you. That's very kind. Let's just start at the top. Jill asked me, she was the first question that came in today, so I'm going to just try to take these in order. Jill asked me, what are the reasons I may stay away from cases? Okay, because she first asked me, are there any cases that I've stayed away from? And I said, well, I really don't want to get into that because I'll talk to anybody. Emily will contact anybody. I'll talk to anybody. Cherie will talk to anybody. Whoever's involved with Unfound will talk to anybody. But the reasons we might shy away from cases are the following. If we think that the person's lying, okay? Number 2, if we think that the person is trying to push a certain agenda, so they want to talk about all these facts over here, but they don't want to talk about all these facts over here. Okay, that's another reason. Okay? Those are 2, and both of those reasons have come up in the past. Recently, I'd have to think about. Depends what you mean by recently, I suppose. But since the beginning of this year, yes. I would say probably there was at least one person I talked to since the beginning of this year where I thought that the person might have been shading things a little too far in one direction, and I thought that they were doing that for certain reasons. And I can't interview people like that. I just can't do it. So those are probably the 2 most popular reasons. Now, there are others that we haven't pursued because of things that I've talked about on this program before. One is they've already gotten a lot of attention. Jennifer Kesse, Mara Murray, on and on and on. because any attention that myself and any of the people that helped me put this program together devote to that case is going to take away from a case that hasn't gotten a lot of attention. For example, this Friday, Clark Rogers. Okay? Any one of those is going to take away. It's just that it's a zero-sum game. And that's unfortunate. It just is. Anytime I devote time to this case is going to get taken away from this case over here. Okay? So we do not actively pursue cases that are well known. That does not mean if one of the people involved in one of the families in one of those cases were to contact me or Emily or whoever, I would certainly talk to them. But we are not actively pursuing cases that we consider to be really, really popular that have been covered over and over and over. But I would never rule out talking to anybody. Okay? That's how I explain that. Jill, I don't know if you're watching tonight or not. I know you often do watch. But that is how we handle that on Unfound. Okay? So there's the answer to question number 1. Sherry, and I don't know if Sherry's in here or not, asked me, can listeners get too involved in cases? And LaFord Girl says, I admit I'm tired of Murray, but the Jennifer Kessie case doesn't trig me. Carrie, and that is totally understandable as well. Thank you, Carrie. Sherry asked me, do listeners get too involved in cases? And let me shut my air conditioning off. See, that's something else that I won't have to worry about when I move to the next place because it doesn't have a unit in the wall. It's like central air with the little vents and everything, and it's not as loud. So I'll be able to run the air conditioning when I'm recording, when I'm doing this program, because I can't do that in this place. Like I said, it's a little bachelor pad that I've lived in the last 7.5 years. Do listeners get too involved in cases? Sherry, if you're watching, I don't know if you are or not. But it all depends on what you mean by too involved. I'm not an obsessive guy. I think that's the reason I've never been a drinker. I've never been a smoker, never got into drugs. I just don't obsess on things. I don't get addicted to things, but I know a lot of people are like that. They get so much into something, they can't take their mind off it. And that can be good and it can be bad. Obviously, if a listener or some people in the public get too involved in a case to the point where, they become a troll, they become stalkerish, they try to control the conversation, then yes, they do. Then there are people out there who do get too involved in a case. That's true. Now, however, on the other hand, if you're talking about getting too involved from actually wanting to help out or solve the case or email people and call people and do it constructively, and you're not doing it kind of in once again, an obsessive way where you're taking cues from what the family's doing. You're not just going off on your own and just, doing what you want. Then I don't consider that to be too involved. If you're actually trying to solve the case, my problem is that, and this is what I'm trying to change with Unfound, is that I don't want people to get so obsessed on the talking about the case. I want them to become obsessed on doing something about it. Okay? And if you're doing it and if it's pushing toward, if you're just going to get on, for example, Reddit and just throw theories back and forth and rumors and everything else, that's not constructive. And that becomes obsessive. And that's the wrong kind of obsession. And I got a bug flying in here. But on the other hand, if something about a particular case grabs you so hard and you use that energy positively, instead of just talking about it, taking action, then I think that can be a healthy obsession, I think. Hey, Derek, what's going on? Derek, the question was, do listeners get too involved in cases? And I said that yes, some do, but it all depends on what you mean by too involved. If it's just, I would say that you're too involved if all you do is talk, 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 talk. Whereas I want to see action. I'm never going to criticize a listener getting involved from an action point of view. But if it's just talk and you're getting it once again on Reddit, on WebSleuths, and these places, and it's just endless theorizing, endless rumorizing, endless, feasting on any little piece of information that comes out, then I just don't know how, constructive that is. That's why, with myself and Carrie, we try to control the discussion in the discussion group. So it's constructive and there's no trolls or anything else. So I hope that answers your question, Sherry. Cherie says, I think intention is important. Absolutely, Cherie. Okay, Stacy. Blaze, Ed, can you tell the families to please tell us what type of help they need? We can help more. Well, Blaze, most of the guests who have ever been on Unfound are in the discussion group. You can find them there. They're there. They're easy to find there. I would say, I don't know, 90% of the guests who've ever been on Unfound, you can ask them. They may say they're fine. They may ask if you have any experience, I don't know, going through databases online. They may ask you this, they may ask you that. It just depends on what your skills are and what time you have. Seek them out. They're easy to find. On their Facebook page, in the group. That's my attitude. That's what I would do. If you'd say that, hey, I heard about your case on Unfound. Just wondering if I can help out in some way. Do you need somebody to do something? Do you need me to email anybody? Do you want me to call anybody? Is there any information that you'd like me to look over so we can talk about it and maybe give you my opinion on it? Things like that. That's how I think that listeners can get involved. Justino, what's going on? Gene, what's going on? I'm glad you can all make it. But I wouldn't, Blaze, I wouldn't get into a thing where you're waiting for them to tell you what to do. You can find them, you can ask them. And some of them may blow you off, I don't know, but then others probably won't blow you off. Beach. Okay, BJ, you're welcome. Thank you for that statement. Thank you, I appreciate that. Let's go to the next question, and then I'll cover some more news, and then we'll come back to some questions. Because once again, in a half hour, I have to be out of here. Ray Greekar. Larry asked me this question. I know Larry's from Pennsylvania. He and I have talked about baseball and some other things privately. But he asked me, I'm going to talk about the Delphi girls here in a bit, Derek. Just hold on. After this question, we're going to go do that. Ray Greekar. I have to tell you that my opinion on Ray Greekar is very bland. Okay? Maybe you'd almost expect that given how I usually, my theories on most of the cases. I don't think that I have extravagant theories on any of the cases that Unfound is covered. Okay? That's why I really don't talk about my theories too much, except on the Patreon blog. I think that Ray Greekar's disappearance, once again, I don't know anything else than any of you do. In fact, maybe I even know less because I can't read up on it and follow if anything's going on. I think he took off. I think that over the especially since, I've started Unfound and read about, so many cases of people walking off and things like that. It probably happens more than we know. You have to remember something. Lawyers have one of the highest rates of suicide in the United States. That's true. You can look it up. He had, what was it, a brother that committed suicide, or he had a father that committed suicide. There may be some genetic precursor, not what do you, could there be something genetic? Let's just keep it simple, Ed. Could there be something genetic? Maybe depression, bipolar issues, something like that that could run in the Grikar family. I'm open to that. The stuff about him walking with a woman, as much as I've covered disappearances and everything, after a while, I start to doubt seeing things like that. I just doubt it. And then his laptop was seen in the creek and all of that. I think he went into the woods and they just haven't found him. And like Mara Murray, same way. A lot of people get very extravagant with that case. Me, I think she just went into the woods and she just was never found. So, Larry, if you're out there, I'm sorry that maybe you were something for. I don't think it has anything to do with Jerry Sandusky or anything like that. I think that Ray Grikar was a troubled guy and just people didn't know about it. I just that's all I have for that. Once again, I don't know any more than anybody else. I know there were cigarettes in his car, smoke or something. It's one of those things where until you really talk, as I've learned doing 120 some interviews now, until you talk to the family and really nail them down on some of these things and ask them and everything else, you just don't know. You just don't. Because of so many things that have been put out in the public, and we know that news articles can be wrong and information gets dropped and things that look suspicious aren't. So, there's nothing that I've seen that changes my mind that he just decided to walk off and hurt himself in some way. So, Larry, if that's letting you down, I apologize, but that's my opinion on it. And I bet anybody can show me any information differently. If Ray Grikar's family ever wants to talk to me sometime, I'd be happy to do that. Once again, though, that's one of those cases that's gotten a lot of attention. But if they find out about me, they contact me or Emily, then we'll talk to them. Well, Blaze, if they just say thanks, then that's all you can do. That's all you can do, Blaze. That you're putting the best foot forward, and I think that's very positive. And if you're doing that, you're doing more than most people are doing. So that's great. Fine. Let's go back to what Derek said. Ed, when I heard about the new information about the Delphi girls, the guy can be heard saying down the hill. What does he mean by down the hill? Did the girl encounter this guy unexpectedly? We're going to talk about that. I just want to get through some of these statements, so we're going to talk about that for a second. Carrie says, Marianne Chapman and I are just waiting for an opportunity to get together and search for Angie Arnell together. Great, Carrie. See, those are the types of things I'm talking about, Carrie. Very good. Very good. Yes, Gene, I did cover the Shane Fell case. In fact, I know his mother, Terry, very well. And she will be getting a book shortly when I can ship it to her. It's one of those stumper cases, Gene. Very, very, one of the more perplexing disappearances probably that Unfound has covered. Blaze, brother and father suicided, but poor guy had 1 year to retirement. Yeah. Blaze says he's on Facebook. Well, Blaze, you just have to keep putting yourself out there. Asking these family if they need help in some way. It's no different than like dating. You just got to keep asking women until one says yes. But that's the right thing to do. The important thing is it's the right thing to do, and just doing it makes the families feel better. Some strangers just contacting them out of nowhere and saying, can I help you in some way? Is there something I can do? I know you don't know me very well or at all, but can I help you in some way? That alone does so much for those families out there because so many of them feel like they've been forgotten. All right, let's go back to the Delphi case. Now, I don't, I'm not an expert on the case. I've tried to follow it a little bit. I've talked to a few people offline or out of the public view. I've talked to them about it, but I am not an expert on it. But the reason I want to talk about it is because just a few days ago they released a new sketch. My opinion, once again, as a layman, that sketch doesn't look anything like the old one to me. Okay? Now, what does this all mean? And I watched what the police officer said, and I watched at least most of that video that was online. I watched it. And I saw that in a couple different forums that I went into, that a lot of people were saying, well, but I think they know who it is. They know. Well, I don't think they do. I have the completely opposite. Now, they may know now. It may be, since it's been a couple days, that somebody has seen this sketch, listened to the additional audio, the video, and called the police and said, well, we have a lead. What's going on, Heather? We have a lead, and they may have a suspicion who it is now, being that the new picture and everything came out. But they would not release a sketch of somebody if they knew who it was. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. What instead they would do is something different. And my opinion, I feel the same way, like in the Missy Beavers case, being that we just talked about it a couple weeks ago, and of course it just passed the 3-year anniversary of her murder in Texas. When they brought in a new detective for that case, I immediately said at the time, this case is nowhere. I thought it would be solved by now, but when they switched investigators and a new person came in, I was like, I think they're lost. Either they wouldn't switch investigators if they had a suspect, but they couldn't pin it on somebody, on the person. There was just circumstantial evidence, no hard evidence. It's the same way I feel about the Delphi situation, that they wouldn't release a new sketch that was so radically different from the first one unless they were a little bit of a dead end. And we also have to remember something. That first audio that they released way back when, in the picture and everything, obviously they had more, and that's why they released it. Well, they've had all of that information this whole time, and they probably have even way more information than we know about, and it's still unsolved. Despite what seems to be public opinion, that, well, they just know who this guy is and they haven't been able to pin it on him. I just feel totally the opposite way. LaFort's, oh my God, I can't believe you just mentioned the Beavers case. Delphi and the Beavers case are the ones I'm obsessed with. Well, LaFort, we were just talking about obsession a little earlier. So getting back to let me go back up to you, Derek. Derek, let me read your question again. Derek, when I heard about the new information about the Delphi girls, the guy heard me saying down the hill. What does he mean by down the hill? Did the girl encounter this guy unexpectedly? That was a question, a topic that I got into discussion with a guy about a week ago, maybe 10 days ago. And it just stretches my imagination that these two girls were dropped off somewhere and they just happened to run into a guy who murdered them. Okay, I'm not saying it's never happened in the history of the world. We know it has. But that they met this guy in somewhere where nobody else saw anything, nobody else heard anything. I am personally inclined to believe that at least one of those girls had some sort of prior communication with that guy. I can't get that out of my mind. Once again, I don't know anything more about this than any of you do. It just stretches my imagination that these two girls show up and then this guy decides to murder him. Now, I did get into a discussion with this guy about, well, maybe it was the filming of him that actually got them in trouble. Well, then we go, okay, so then they just happened to show up somewhere where a guy who didn't like being taken, didn't like having his pictures taken of him, murders them. Either way, it seems like horrible, horrible bad luck, and it seems like such a low percentage chance of happening that I have to believe that there was something else going on. Uh, you know, um, the Unsinkable. I agree. I think that they were looking with intent because they are hoping that the killer would go to the press conference. LaFord, I know that is why I used the word obsessed. Very clever of you, LaFord. Just, YouTube automatic emails the only way I keep track with Ed and his work. I don't participate. Okay, just, the Unsinkable. I read there is a lot more to the audio, but it is too graphic for people to share. Well, uh, how do we know that? I mean, I the this once again goes back to, is that a rumor that there's more audio and it's too graphic for people to share, or is that just somebody writing online because they know it's going to get a lot of attention? Do the police have leakers in their department that are saying that, or has somebody actually heard it? Those types of things on the Unsinkable always, it's always a question mark. Well, there's a lot more to the audio. Well, I don't know. I don't know if there is or not. But whether there's more audio, more video, whatever else, it doesn't change the fact that these two girls, ended up there. They encountered this guy, and he murdered him. Just a random, it's not like they were walking down a dark alley at night and this happened. It was, out in wherever they were. They just got dropped off somewhere to, have a good time for the afternoon. And this guy just happened to be there. And the way it looks like in the pictures, the way I would explain it, it seems to me like he was waiting for somebody. That one picture where he's standing, I think, far away or whatever, it looks like he's waiting for somebody. Then, well, how do we believe that he wasn't waiting for them? Maybe he knew that they were going to be there. So, I don't know. And I don't know how they get the sketches that wrong. I don't know how the one sketch can look from like a guy in his 50s, early 60s, kind of the drooping face and everything. And then the next one looks like a guy who's no older than 30. The one guy has a hat, the other guy has no hat. I don't know how that all happens. I really don't. If I knew, I'd tell you. I don't know. The audio was released by police in the interview. I know that, but they didn't release the graphic part. So how do we know that the graphic part exists? All right. The Unsinkable. You read that there's a lot more to the audio, but it's too graphic for police to share. Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it exists or not. D says there are crazy people all over the place. D, I'm inclined to believe you. But once again, it's a percentage type of thing. This goes maybe back to Mara Murray. If she would have wrecked her car in downtown New York City at 2 a.m, then I would believe it's perfectly possible that somebody bad came along and did something to her, because that's a city that never sleeps. Same way with Las Vegas. You wreck in downtown Las Vegas, there's going to be people there. Something could happen. But that her wreck was out in the middle of nowhere when one car might have gone past there every 10 minutes, it's just different. So once again, if these girls would have been dropped off in a dark alley at 2 a.m. somewhere, then I might expect that they might run into somebody bad. But not out at some park or, wherever they were, out in the middle of nowhere. So that's just the way I think about things. All right, Carrie, you got to go. Karen says, Bridge guy looked like he came prepared. There was something hidden under his jacket. I don't know about that, Karen, but I will agree with you that the way you could interpret the picture is that he was waiting for somebody. That's what it seems to me. And that's what leads me to believe that one of those girls might have been communicating with some boy that they thought was 13 or 14, and it wasn't. It was actually a grown man. All right, so that's the Delphi case. I hope that answers your question Derek. I was planning to talk about that. Um, so I don't, to answer your just question, I don't think that they encountered this guy unexpectedly. I don't believe that. Let's go to some more questions. Tasha asks, how do I personally avoid getting too involved in a case? Does it not become something where you learn about a case and you just want to work on it more and more and more instead of being so easily be able to move on to the next one for the next week? You know, or Tasha, whatever it is, however you pronounce your name, um, it sometimes can be an issue. And kind of behind the scenes, I'm trying to change that. In fact, Cherie knows, Emily knows that we are now working on a case behind the scenes, actually, a variety of cases, a group of cases together, in which we are getting much more into the investigative side of it. Instead of just the reporting of what their families want to say, we're actually going back and getting the information from these people and checking it for ourselves. So, and it's an area that I would certainly like to explore more, but we're not changing the format of the program. This is going to be always be a reporting program every Friday, as long as we can find a case to talk about and I can find somebody to interview. It's always going to be every Friday. But yet, Tasha, the answer is yes. Sometimes there have been some where I said, you know what, this would be a case that I would like to personally get involved more somewhere down the road. The answer is yes. And I'm trying to change that very slowly. You have to remember something is that Emily, for example, my assistant, she has her own job. Okay. Cherie, she has her own job. Some of the other people who have assisted me and them and some of the things that we're working on right now, they have their own job too. I am the only person that does this full time. Okay. So all of that has to be managed, and they can assist and work on things as much as they see fit, but they have a responsibility to themselves and their families for the money that they make, and everything. So this is pretty much kind of an amateur operation, but we love it, and we're doing constructive work, and we're trying to do more of that. What you're talking about, Tasha, behind the scenes. We try to avoid going down the rabbit holes, BJ. We really do. We really try not to do that. And really, we're not. What we're really doing is trying to get our hands on the real information that was taken at the time and kind of getting back to the basics. All right, on some of these things and tracking down witnesses and people who made statements back at the time. And that's what we're doing right now on a group of cases, not just one, on a group of cases that eventually we hope to cover on Unfound. Of course, bringing out new information on it. So we're trying to get a little more on the investigative side. But once again, that has to be managed with what all of these other people who help the program do in their own personal lives. All right. Next, Andrea asks, she asks about satellite imagery of people disappearing. Do I think that the government has imagery of people being kidnapped and people disappearing? The answer is no. At least the way I understand the way our satellites work, our satellites do not take pictures and have videos zooming down on every square inch of the United States all the time. You have to remember, when you go to Google Maps, satellite maps, those are pictures taken over weeks, months, if not years. And then they are all pieced together. Okay? Most of the satellites that we have in orbit are communication satellites. They are not picture-taking satellites. Most of them are for communications, for GPS, for satellite communications from here to China to Europe, all of those things. Not too many of them take pictures. Okay, they are mostly for communications for, of course, we know about jets and ships and cell phone service and military communication, things like that. So the answer to that, Andrea, is no. That I don't believe there's, imagery of anybody being, taken or abducted or anything else. I mean, is it possible? Yes, but I think the odds of that are probably like Powerball, winning Powerball odds, like one in whatever that is, 100 million or 200 million, something like that. Just an opinion on that. I think it was Jill. I haven't written down Jill. Maybe I got the name wrong. Why is it that there is a, let me see what I got here. Justina says, please check your email when you get time. I will do that, Justino. I will do that. I'm sure that topography satellites inadvertently catch things sometimes, but we need one in a haystack. It surely would, Justino. It certainly would. I can't, once again, being that there have been pictures taken of the United States, then I guess it's possible. But once again, any one of us winning Powerball is possible too. Jill asked, why the 1 year? I think it was Jill. Why the 1 year stipulation as far as covering cases when found? Why do I let a year go before we will get involved in a disappearance? The reasons are this. First of all, it takes a lot of work for a guest to be on Unfound. It takes up a lot of time. Okay? First of all. Second of all, I feel that a year allows a lot of the theorizing and rumors and things that can't be substantiated to die down. Okay? It kind of clears the field a little bit for me to come in, start asking some good questions, and instead of me getting involved a week after and a family member telling me, well, yesterday we heard this, and today we heard this, and then an hour ago I heard this, and then, because that's what would end up being, I believe. Once again, after 125 cases of experience. The other reason that we wait a year is because if there was let's just say there was no time limit at all, I can tell you very quickly that all Unfound would be doing was covering every disappearance that happens that week. Okay? And no cases would get covered that are 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old. Okay? Because if you're going to say that you'll cover anything at any time, then you have to cover anything at any time. And these newer disappearances, and I post them in the group, other people post them in the group, they're getting their media attention. And you have to remember, a lot of those people do reappear and they're alive. And that brings me to the next point, is that if you cover a case too early, we put on all this work, talking, interviewing, and everything else, and then just as we're ready to get to do the interview, the person comes back and they say they've been in Las Vegas for the last week and got, ran off, eloped, and got married. So that's why we have a time limit. That's why we let things kind of work themselves out for like a year. What a year does, that time span can lend some perspective to looking back at the disappearance instead of being so in the moment at the time, the next day, the next week, where really people are not who are emotionally involved are not ready to do the kinds of in-depth interviews that I do for the program. So there are quite a few reasons put together. Jill, I hope that answers your question. Garrett, growing up, what was your favorite sitcom? Did you like The Golden Girls or another show? Never watched The Golden Girls. Three's Company and Cheers. When I was like 10 years old and getting into my teen years, those were my two favorite sitcoms. That's interesting, Blaze, the mowing thing. Okay, we got 5 minutes, And I got one question to go, and then I got to go. I apologize. Lynn asked me about the Abeyta case, Abeyta. That is one in which the sister got sued for $150,000, and because she caused a woman who is a suspect in that case to lose her job. Okay, and Lynn asked me, is this the reason that sometimes people are so afraid to name names? Okay, never watched soap either, Justino. Um, Here is the reason first of all, we all have First Amendment rights. We can have an opinion. We can have opinions on anything. The issue when it comes to a court case in court is that if you say something about somebody, it is upon the plaintiff, so it'd be the alleged suspect in this case, to be able to prove that what was said about them was malicious, meaning that it was meant to hurt them, or it was meant to hurt them. It was said for no other reason. There were no facts to back it up at all. It was just meant to damage their credibility. And then the plaintiff must have to prove that it cost them something. They just can't say, well, my feelings were hurt. They have to prove that if something was malicious, that it caused for example, them to get divorced, them lose their job, lose custody of their children, things like that. That is the court standard for winning see ya, Khalil boy. That is the standard for winning the type of case that came up in the Abeyta case. Okay? This should be a very, very good lesson for anybody who does interviews out there. That is the reason when I do Unfound, we don't do theorizing. All we do is cover the facts. Where people were, what they said, what the guest heard, who they talked to, things like that. Okay, that's why we don't get into theorizing. Because there's nothing against the law about talking of facts. Like I always say, I can't help it if the facts of this case make somebody look guilty. I don't go after anybody. And I hated it, as you heard in the update episode, when Katie Nelson tried to portray me as doing that, going after her father. I was not going after her father. I don't care who caused Juanita Nelson to disappear. I don't care. My responsibility is to talk about all of the facts that we deem relevant to her disappearance. And I can't help it if some of those facts are going to make some people look bad. I can't help that. Okay? There is a difference. And frankly, this sister in this Abeyta case, she went too far. She was trying to get this woman fired from her job and everything else. Too far. And any guest that I would ever have that would ever say anything about trying to do something like that, I would say, don't do it. Okay? Do not do it. That is asking for trouble. So, very good. But there you go. I gotta go. I apologize. I hope you had a great show tonight. I'm sorry that I have to cut this off early, but I have to do an interview for Friday's episode in 5 minutes. So I'm gonna go. Everybody gonna see Avengers of Endgame this weekend? Everybody gonna go see that? I'll go see it when I have the time. But I gotta go. I wish I could spend time with all of you. I love talking to all of you. A lot of good comments tonight, some good questions. And now you all are talking about your favorite sitcoms. Fine by me. But I gotta go. I will see you all next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, when I will surely be in my new place at 1340 Gulf Boulevard up on the 8th floor. And there you go. So I will have a different background this time next week. Good night. Thank you so much.